1939, an ocean liner set sail from Hamburg with 935 Jewish refugees on board. And they're bound for Havana, and they get to Cuba, and they're not allowed to dock. Cuba doesn't want them. And so they sail towards Florida, and before they get to the Florida coast, the Secretary of State, Cordell Hull, says to FDR, we don't want them. And the captain actually has this crazy idea that what he'll do is he'll run the ship aground on the coastline of Florida and force the Coast Guard to come and rescue them. And that's the way they'll get to America. But the Coast Guard is one step ahead of them and surrounds the ship and escorts it back out to sea. So then it goes to Canada. And what does Canada say? We don't want you. So what happens? Ship goes back to Europe, and there's something like a quarter of the people on board perished in the camps. Now, why did this country turn away the MS St. Louis in 1939? Well, for many reasons. But part of it was that after the Depression and the wave of anti-immigrant sentiment in the 20s and the 30s, we lost our capacity to think in terms of the altruistic frame. Right? We didn't know how to do it anymore. Even though we had a Statue of Liberty that had a sign under it saying, give me your poor, your huddled masses struggling to be free, right? We had that in New York Harbor. Somehow we forgot how to think that way. There was a moment in the debates last summer when refugees came up, and I kept waiting for someone, anyone, one of the candidates, the moderator, anyone to bring up the St. Louis, the story of the St. Louis, this great stain on our national conscience, right? Something we have regretted for 75 years, something that I thought would have been relevant in the discussion we're having today, and nobody did. Nobody brought it up. And it made me wonder whether we're headed back in the same treacherous direction that we were in before the Second World War, where this habit has fallen out of practice. So how do we get it back? Well, I think that's why you're all here. I think we get it back through groups like the UJA, right? The reason institutions like this one, the reason they matter is that they have the moral credibility to remind us of the importance of our obligations to others, to use the altruistic frame even when it has fallen by the wayside, right? And to teach us that the most powerful way to think about the world is not in terms of ourselves, but in terms of our obligations to others. Thank you.